Becoming a successful professional speaker is a journey. How do you find that first stage, the next stage, and then the bigger and better stages? I'm Lee Hayes, your host. My co-hosts and I are here to guide you to a more successful speaking career. You're listening to Path to the Main Stage podcast. So welcome aboard to the first episode of Path to the Main Stage. I am Lee Hayes, your host. I am the founder of Go Leeward Speaker Management, where I manage about 20 speakers. And I also do Path to the Main Stage coaching, where I work with emerging speakers. And over the years, aside from my own stable, I have placed hundreds of speakers. Being a speaker manager and placing speakers, I also work with bureaus and agencies and agents. I work with small business event planners, EOs and YPOs, not-for-profits, faith groups, corporations, all different sorts of people who plan events and hire speakers. In the course of working with speakers, I've also worked with social media planners, marketing experts, financial experts, and then a lot of expertise from my speakers, from pitching to negotiating. There are so many different things that I've learned over time that when I started getting approached more and more by emerging speakers, they often had the same question. And that question always was, how do I get on more stages? Or more likely, can you get me on more stages? Or should I get an agent? And I've helped these speakers as much as I can. I chat with them on the phone. I do some coaching. But then I thought, why don't I start a podcast so I can bring all this information to emerging speakers and help them? Because while a lot of speakers are not ready to invest money, maybe in their careers, you've got to be willing to invest time. Speaking is a complex, crazy industry. Let's start with why it's crazy. Let's think about this. In the speaking industry, you have the lowest bar to entry with the highest payoff of any industry I can think of. Let's think about how low the bar is. You don't need training or certification, licensing, a college degree. There is no requirement for you to claim that you're a speaker other than to say, I'm a speaker. You don't even need to start an actual LLC. You can just say, I'm a speaker, and away you go. So it's a pretty low bar, but it's the highest pay. I mean, think about it. You have even beginner speakers can make $500 an hour. You can make $5,000, $50,000, $5 million. Well, I think $2 million is the highest I've heard. But for 1 hour, that's a crazy amount of money to be paid as a speaker for 60 minutes on stage. So what happens is, I believe, because the industry seems so easy, I can just say I'm a speaker and earn $50,000. Many, many people try it. And because many, many people try it, there's a white noise. There is this sludge of all these speakers that if you want to be successful, you need to rise above. You need to get instantly into the top 10% to have any success and be a top 1% to really have success. Let's look at businesses for a minute. The SBA says, Small Business Association, 50% of small businesses will only last 5 years, and then they quit, they're done, they leave. I'll bet with speakers, and I could not find this statistic, I am making this up, I believe that 90% of speakers who just try to get in the industry, just say, you know what, I'm going to be a speaker and make a go of it. I'm willing to bet 90% of those give up in 5 years because it's not just an art. You can't just say, I'm comfortable in front of people. That's usually the qualification that people tell me they have. I'm comfortable in front of people, Lee, so I'd like to be a speaker. That qualification is not enough to make you a successful business owner. Speaking is a business. It is an art form, but it is also a business. You need to know pricing, negotiating, contracting, finance, marketing, branding, social media, Speaking, stage presentation, there are so many aspects to it. You need to understand why and how speakers are hired, who hires them, when they hire them. What does a book do for you? So as a speaker, maybe you've taken courses or you've heard of courses, and there are many that focus on an aspect of speaking. Your stage performance, writing a book, or maybe they'll tell you there are 3 things you need to know to get on stage or how to get booked. But here's the thing, what I'm going to talk about in this podcast and the co-hosts that I'm going to bring on for each show, we're going to talk about all of the aspects of speaking, all the parts of the business that are going to get you there and keep you going and make you successful and help you make money, making a living at the business or a secondary stream of income at the business, not just put you on stage. And while I say just, yes, stage performance is definitely important. But if you only have performance, how do you get there? And if you only have business skills and you don't practice, what do you do when you get up there? You might get hired once, but you won't get hired again. Speaking, success in speaking is holistic. And that's what I want to bring to you with this podcast. So let's talk about me for a minute before we get back to you. I started in this industry, oh my goodness, more than 10 years ago. I was in big pharma as a human resource director. And one day I got the phone call. And the phone call was from my boss, who said, Lee, we need you to come into the office today at 3 p.m. We're having an executive meeting. It was a Sunday. She called me at noon and said I had to be there at 3 o'clock on a Sunday. Again, here's a tip. If your boss ever calls you and tells you you need to be there on a Sunday because it's important, 3 hours after you get the phone call, it's not a good thing. They're not throwing a party for you and they're not giving you a raise. So the news was even worse than I thought it would be. It was not just my job that it was risk. In fact, it was the entire division was going to be shut down. And because I was the human resources director, it was going to be my job to fire 272 people over 2 years. And and by the way, Lee, don't let the door hit you on the way out, because once you finish firing everybody else, we have no more job for you. So those were my marching orders. And indeed, over the next 2 years, this is what I did. I told people when their time was coming. I helped get their packages together. I wrote their letters. I tried to help find them jobs. I had photos taken of people so they had new headshots, tried to get them different skills, different positions, all these things. I did really work hard to try to help people who needed help getting jobs. But then another call came along. As I got within the last couple months of my job, I had, I think, 13 or 15 people left. And at this point, I had nothing to do. And when I say nothing, I mean I was taking apart shelving. I was cleaning laboratories. I was looking for anything to pass my time, because my job at that point was take phone calls. If somebody who left needs a hand with something, if they have a benefits question, you need to answer the question. And then you need to get those last few packages ready for those last few people over the next few weeks. And that was it. So the next call came, and that call was from Mike Michalowicz, a speaker. And he said to me, I know you're doing nothing. I have a proposal for you. I have an agency that I was working with, and they just restructured. And I don't care for the restructure. I don't like the way they're going to handle things going forward. I need to find a new agent. So would you please take my phone calls for the next 12 weeks, negotiate my contracts, write my contracts, handle my speaking, and then at the end of 12 weeks, you'll be on to your next corporate gig. I will find my new agency, and we'll part. And there we go. 10 years later, I still work with Mike Michalowicz, and he is now a very popular speaker doing very well. He never went to another agency. He has me now. I mean, yes, you can hire him through a bureau, but you still get stuck with me as the person who does the contracts and gets them on stage. And now I work with 20 speakers because it turns out that I love this business. I thought it was going to be all about sales, and I thought, I don't like sales. I don't want to do that. but it's not about sales. It's about customer experience and relationships and plussing and getting success from two different sides, right? I make clients successful because they find the right speaker, and I can make my speakers successful because they get on stages. So I love this business and I'm still doing it. And not only do I love working with the speakers that I have who are very successful getting on stages, but what I also found I really love to do is work with emerging speakers. And I love to hear when I work with a speaker, Lee, you gave me so much information. You gave me such great direction and help. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. I love that. I love making an impact, making a difference for people, helping get them on stage. And that's why I started this. I want to help more people get on stage, and I want to bring in all the resources that I have and share them with you. So that's about me. Let's talk about you. I call this podcast one for emerging speakers. What I mean by emerging speaker is that either you want to get to your first stage, or you want more stages. You still want to go to the next level. So most speakers are emerging speakers because they want to go to the next level. Versus there are some who say, and I have these, Lee, I am maxed out for the year. This is it. That's all I want to do. I have enough. We'll start talking again next year. May you please get to that position. But most of you want to figure out that next stage. And there are thousands of events every day that are hiring speakers, but there are millions of speakers. So let's figure out a way to rise above. The first thing you need to think about is, what kind of speaker are you? That's going to be my topic for today. When speakers first come to me, I ask that question, and the answer I often get is, oh, I'm a $10,000 speaker, or I'm a business speaker. I talk to anybody in business, or I speak about self-growth or business success, sort of generic topics. So while a topic is what you talk about, it is not who you are as a speaker. It's not the niche you fill. And it's important to know specifically what kind of speaker you are, because event planners or owners or anybody looking to hire a speaker needs a certain kind of speaker to fill what their goals are. Let me explain. I put speakers in 5 categories: edutainers, tellers, talkers, teachers, and sellers. Those are the big 5. Most events only need 1 or 2 of those in the event, but different events want different things for different reasons. So it's important to know which one you are so that you're applying to the right events to get there, and that when somebody approaches you, you know if you can fulfill their needs or not. If you are one kind of speaker, you shouldn't pretend to be something else, because you're going to fail at that, or at least you're not going to make the event planner happy. So we're going to go now and look deeper into each one of these 5 different types of speakers, these 5 different categories. And as I go on, please figure out which one you are. That is going to be your first big step into being more successful. And maybe you're more than one, but you are not all 5. And if you are, then you've got to be good at one of them. You're not going to be good at all of them. So let's start with the edutainer. The edutainer is what I typically thought of as a keynote speaker when I started in this business. And I think what a lot of people think of as keynote speakers. Now, my niche for my speakers is business. Most often it's entrepreneurialism, although I have also grown into corporate, but it's business. I'm not into inspirational, motivational, sports figures, things, or different events like that. Really, my place is business, and maybe your place is business too. Maybe it's something else, but a lot of these categories are still going to fit. The first one, the edutainer, for business and for many other places. The edutainer is someone who has proprietary knowledge or copyright knowledge or information that they've gained through experience or something else that is special or unique to them. Something that they're sharing that you're not going to hear all the time from others. They're going to share this information with you in an entertaining way. Education, entertainment, edutainer. They're going to tell stories. They're going to take the audience on a journey while they are teaching them about their systems, methods, ideas, thoughts, whatever it is unique to them. So you get entertainment, you get education, and generally that education is 3 to 5 takeaways. You're not just going to have things thrown at you. You're going to leave with distinct learning points. And you'll know what kind of event is looking for this when you speak to an event planner and they say, tell me about your topic and what are your takeaways. They're looking for an edutainer. Now, this is different from another type of keynote speaker, which I call the teller. The teller is someone who has a unique experience, but they don't expect you to learn from it. You're not going to have a takeaway. So their experience might be they won the Daytona 500. They climbed Mount Everest. They have something special about them. They were the president of Uganda, right? You might listen to them and hear a story you've never heard before. They might inspire you, motivate you, but you're not sitting there going, I wonder if when I leave this keynote, I'm going to be able to go win the Daytona 500. No, you're not. Wonder if I need to go climb Mount Everest. No, you're not. They're not teaching you about their experience. They are sharing with you to excite you, to motivate you. That's what the audience is taking away. And that's what the event planner is going to tell you. We're looking for somebody motivational. We are looking for the Navy admiral who turned the ship, right? Now, that particular speaker I referenced, he actually does give leadership takeaways. But you're not going to learn to be a Navy admiral. They're not expecting that. So you've got your teller, your edutainer. Now, what about those people who do bring a zillion learning points and teach information that is widely accepted? They are teachers. That's the category I call a teacher. And I call them a teacher because that's exactly what you had when you were in grammar school or high school or college. You had teachers. They presented to you from their stage, the front of the classroom, accepted information. It came from books. It is knowledge that other schools teach. If it's history, it is the same history that you find in the history book. The math is the same math that you find everywhere. The biology, the ecology, whatever it might be, these are generally accepted principles. And when somebody is looking for a speaker who's teaching, for example, continuing education units for their group, they need to give out CEUs. They often want teachers. Here's the information they need to know. Are you skilled at teaching that? Now, you can be entertaining. I'm not taking anything away from teachers. I remember I had this wonderful teacher when I was in 8th grade, DJ, Donald Johnson. He was a history teacher, American history, and I still remember Thomas Paine in the beginning of the crisis because we had to memorize it, and I still remember him being cut like wheat or being pushed back as a Native American. He was a tremendous storyteller, but everything he told us came from the history books. It was not his proprietary information. And when that same person gets on a stage in front of another audience, they are also teachers. So we have the teacher, the seller. We have the seller. The seller is definitely a different sort of keynote speaker. They're often compensated differently. They're hired for different events, but it is a skilled role. What sellers do is they will explain to the audience, they will tell the audience what their pain is. They will recognize their pain. This is your problem. Then they will tell them that they're going to solve it. They're going to make a promise. Here's your pain. Here is your promise for a wonderful future. What's going to happen if you listen to me? Then they show you proof. Here are other people who've been highly successful doing what I tell them to do. They have achieved the promise, and you can too. But the one thing a true seller does not do is tell you how. You get no learning takeaways, not a one. but they are masterful at telling stories that make you want to know how to achieve that promise of something that you can do successfully. And you can. The moment they finish, you can buy it right in front of that stage. You can click their QR code and buy it. You can buy it at the front of the room, but they are selling you something. If you want to achieve that promise, you have to put out money. Now, I mentioned that they're often compensated differently. If you are an edutainer or a teller, you are generally paid to get on stage because you are delivering something to the audience. You're bringing value and leaving it with them. You are leaving them with takeaway points. You are inspiring and motivating them. As a seller, you are getting money from the audience. So most of the time, events that specifically hire sellers don't pay them because they're getting compensated from the audience. And what they're getting from the event planner is me, a planner who's creating this event. I am bringing a seller and I'm bringing an audience. And by putting those two together, that's how I make money, right? The audience knows they're going to be sold to. The seller knows they get to pitch to them. There's a successful model, but it's a different model than an event where I'm bringing people in saying, I'm going to teach you something, pay me to do that, and then I'll take some of that money and give it to the speaker to teach you. So there's the seller. The last one is the talker. I've met many talkers who would be wildly successful if they realized how to capitalize on their skill. So often I'll ask a speaker, what do you talk about? What is your topic? What is your area of expertise? And their answer is anything. You give me a topic, I can talk about it. You give me a word, a sentence, a phrase, a topic, and I can just take off with that. I'm a great speaker. That is a special skill, and it is not what I consider a keynote speaker. When I hire a speaker for a stage for someone else, I want a keynote speaker to bring something special to the audience, to motivate and inspire them with their own experience or skill set. A talker is someone that I hire as an MC. That is a skill set which is unique and fantastic and absolutely worth money. Think about when you watch the Oscars and somebody like, Conan O'Brien. Conan O'Brien's a talker. He's a talk show host. He can take any person, any topic, and run with it and be amusing. You, if you're a talker, if you can take any word or topic, if you can just speak spontaneously, you should consider being an MC. There are absolutely big events who need somebody to tie all those things together, to bring people on the stage, to keep things moving. That is a skill. Now, I'd like to tell you about an event I went to where they used all these categories, or most of the categories, all in one time, which is unusual. Usually if you have an audience that knows they're going to be sold to, they're only there to be sold to. Or if you're there only to learn, you only expect learning. But this was an interesting, unique event, so I'm going to share it. It was probably, oh my goodness, almost 10 years ago. It was near the beginning of when I started working with speakers. It was at the Hartford Civic Center in Connecticut, and they seated 17,000 people. Because they wanted to fill all those seats, the tickets were pretty cheap. So my business friends and I, even though we were still with corporate, we said, we're going. They had some big names there. We wanted to go. Now, what drew us to that event were the names. They had Joe Montana. They had General Colin Powell. They had Zig Ziglar. And they had other people. But the unique skills these certain people had is they had Joe Montana as the opening keynote. Joe is an edutainer. He talks about his unique skill set, which is being one of the best NFL football players, quarterbacks of all time. He tells stories about that, which are so engaging and motivating. But then he also gave the audience specific takeaways. How do you learn from a quarterback and lead your team the way he led his team? There were distinct takeaways. So an edutainer. Then they followed up with Zig Ziglar, who was right at the end of his career, but he still did very well. And he was definitely also an edutainer, really was doing a lot of teaching on business as well. And then the closing keynote, and I'll get to the ones in the middle in a minute, but the closing keynote was General Colin Powell, and he was a teller. He talked about being Secretary of State of the United States. He told stories, and the one I remember, because it just sticks in my mind, was when he went to go onto his private plane, a military plane, and that plane's job was to get him from point A to point B. So he was the passenger. Everybody else there was there to serve him. And he talked about how when he walked up to that plane, he put his foot on the first step, and the first engine would start. And then he climbed the stairs, and he sat down, and the second engine would start, and somebody would pop his Diet Coke for him because they were about to take off. And then on his command, the plane would taxi forward. He was a great storyteller, a teller, because there was nothing from his story that I was going to take with me. No one's ever going to take me as the only passenger on their private jet, and I'm going to tell them when to take off. I don't need to have those skills. There was nothing about his foreign service. I'm never going to be Secretary of State. But boy, it was really inspirational, and the audience stayed to hear him tell his stories. Now, in the middle somewhere was Scott. I cannot even tell you what Scott's last name was. And there were a couple Scotts. There were other guys who I don't remember their names as well. It was mainly male speakers that day. But Scott I remember because he was very skilled at what he did. Scott was a seller. I did not realize that when he first started because I did not know that there were different kinds of speakers. But what Scott did is he got on stage and he addressed this audience of mainly business people, and he said, "Wouldn't you like a second stream of income? What you do is very hard. You work hard. You deserve more money." Ooh, that's our pain. He's telling us our pain. We work really hard. We deserve more money. You know what you could do is play the stock market, but don't play it. You want to do it for certain. There are methods to know when a stock has hit its high point and when it's hit its low point. And if you knew that, you would know when to buy and when to sell. And you could make buckets of money because you know the market. You have this second stream of income now. This can be done. That was his promise. He was going to teach us how to beat the stock market or be successful at the stock market by knowing the highs and lows. And I'm ready. I have my pen and pad out. This is before people had, electronic monitoring here. So I have my pen and pad and I'm ready. I'm going to take notes and learn from Scott. Then he starts talking about people who have done this. I had this person that I coached. There was this wealthy individual who used this system. Here's this other person who was on the market and they did it. And I'm going, oh my gosh, these people were so successful. They all did it. How am I going to do it? And then all of a sudden he gets to the end and he says, and to get the system, you just have to pay whatever. We have tables right here, right in front of the stage. And I watched dozens and dozens of people, hundreds maybe, get up from their seats and flock to the front of that stage and start buying his program. And I realized at that moment that while I was completely engaged, because he knew me, he knew my pain, I wanted a second income. He promised me a way to do it. I was so engaged with that story that I followed right to the end and then found out that I had to buy something. He was 100% a seller. And it turns out that this event was really rotate. It was built around sellers. So they had the edutainer at the beginning. It was a great name to bring people in. They had the teller at the end, great name to keep people there all day. And then they had sellers in the middle. And I think the only MC they had, so the teller they had was over a mic. They didn't have anybody on stage that I remember. But they had all these different things. So when you're a speaker, though, it's so important if you apply to an event like this, or if they come to you, to understand what it is you're bringing to the table. Are you the person who should be opening or closing or teaching or selling or emceeing? Phew, that's my story for today. Start with knowing who you are. And then we're going to walk down this path together through this podcast. Hopefully week after week, I want to see you again. And we're going to tell you the other steps along the way to achieve that stage and all the things it takes to get there. So thanks a lot for joining the first episode. I look forward to seeing you again and introducing you to my co-hosts. My co-hosts will be bureaus and agents and people who hire speakers and every other aspect that you need to know about speaking to help you along that path to the main stage. See you soon. Thanks for listening to Path to the Main Stage. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for full video episodes, check out YouTube. If you want to be a successful speaker, you need to make it happen. My co-hosts and I are here to help guide you. But if you need more help, please check out pathtothemainstage.com where we can connect. And until next time, keep sharing your voice, keep showing up, and keep taking your path to the main stage.